Se comenzó el video. Lista, Janet.
Muy bien. ¿Ya?
Adelante, Janet.
Bueno, estamos muy buenos días con todos.
Good morning. Welcome to this roundtable that is held within the 75 years of FAO and the World Food Day 2020. We're participating in this high-level seminar on how to recover and transform agri-food systems of the region post-COVID-19. We have very important participants from OECD, World Bank, IDB, the International Institute on Research of Agri-Food, the International Fund for Agricultural Development, and FAO that are together in this initiative. This event is considered a dialogue arena to exchange experiences, information, and others among the different organizations, the agencies, NGOs, academia, experts. We are all gathered together to assess, among others, the COVID effect in the agri-food system and the effect that this is having in the region, as well as to think about the possible responses of the different possibilities we might have in our specific realities within our countries and the characteristics of our productive systems, as well as for the population. In this panel, we will be talking about the agri-food systems, institutionality, governance, and civil society. We have here with us in this panel Mr. Jorge Bedoya, Chairman of the Agriculture Society in Colombia, Ms. Carla Ramirez, member of the El Salvador National Network of Young Workers, and she will be connected from a video because the conditions in Central America in terms of different storms and others have made the communications very complicated, but we will be receiving her proposal, her participation. And Mr. Emmanuel Quejada from the Inter-American Agricultural Cooperation Institute. I would like to remind you that in the past activities, we will be talking everything related to the roundtable and the panel to offer continuity and follow-up of the support documents for the academia, technical assistance, and to consider this as a work that should be a permanent dialogue process. We also have other important guests that will be participating by presenting comments, questions, or different expressions through the chat in this Zoom presentation. Now that we have a little more time, I will probably be able to give them the floor around 2 minutes. If you have any additional comments, you will be welcome. Additionally, we will be receiving comments, questions of our participants that are connected through other systems such as YouTube, Facebook, or others. This presentation can be followed through the website of FAO, triple w.fao slash something. I am sorry. And it is also being transmitted through Twitter, FAO Americas, as well as Facebook. Let us begin with this roundtable. We will first have the panelist, Mr. Jorge Bedoya, president of the Agricultural Association of Colombia, and I would like him to start with this conversation and not only to comment about the different institutionalities and the possibilities to consider the best activities to support the agri-food systems, for him to comment how we can have possibilities of directing funds in a more novel fashion, maybe through the different possibilities provided by the parafiscal instruments in which Colombia has an important experience. And it is a very good practice if you can tell us about view, and we will have the other countries hearing your ideas. So you have acknowledged. Thank you, Jeanette. I would first like to greet those that are connected here today in this important celebration. I would like to thank Mr. Flores for the invitation, and let us talk directly about what we are have convened for. In this pandemic, what has been presented is that the agri-food system is essential for human life. If we consider it from the logic of the different countries, what we need is food and health. It is a tremendous effort from my country that have made that food safety is an important activity in the country.
This is having other effects because the reason of being for the farmers are the consumers. And when the lockdown started, we saw a very important reduction or drop of the consumption in households and the loss of the jobs. And that translated into the vertical reduction of the food consumption in many sectors of the production. First, we saw in the animal proteins consumption, and then we saw that there were was use of other produce as rice and other grains, and we see now a better possibility for these products. And the second thing is related to the unfortunate situation that we have from the taxation point of view. I speak of Colombia, more particularly the governments are trying to inject liquidity in the economy and some tools to help the payment of payrolls. And this is starting to reduce the possibility to work with the productive sectors. From the point of view of the alternatives we have now, Colombia has a figure back from the 90s that is very positive for the agri-food development, and this is the use of the non-tax or non-fiscal funds. These are taxes that are specifically allocated for the different sectors of the food production. I will explain this very straightforward. In the case of the agriculture, we have 13 sectors of production that have these resources, and the farmers themselves pay a tax that is determined based on their throughput. And this tax taxation has a specific allocation, and that is the investments by the trade association that represent them in issues beneficiating the sector. And this has been determined by the republic, and the investment is done in the sector of animal health to prevent the introduction of the avian flu or Newcastle disease, or in the case of cacao, cocoa. And we are now an exporter of cocoa, or the renewal of crops, or the technical assistance that is very important for the producers of different sectors, and everything that is related to the information systems, allowing the farmers to make rational decisions. We say this very clearly. This type of tools is not replacing the tasks to be undertaken by the government to get more productivity from the complementary sectors, but it's very clear that this tool is an advantage. First of all, it's not submitted to the changes of policy or public policies by the different governments or administrations, because this is a law originated tool. This is managed by the subsectorial um, entities, and it's not submitted to the different fluctuations of the administrations in the country, and this is governed by the fiscal office, or the prosecutor office, and they decide how they are going to invest these resources. When we see the history of what they have done so far, we see that there are very important changes in relation with competitiveness and productivity, the penetration of some produce in the households, and also the production internationally. And so we see the experience of these non-tax resources. Some of these sectors are not benefiting yet from them, but they have the support from the government to materialize all of this. This is a tool that is not replacing the task by the government, but in the time of tax tightness, this can become a very important alternative, because these are taxes that the farmers pay for their own benefit, and that are away from all these situation that the country is involved in. So I will stop here, Janet, so that we can listen to the rest of the presentation and then engage in a discussion about these topics. Thank you very much, Jorge. You raised a very important point issue.
De instrumentos.
You already explained what this means as policy tools that are not directly run by the government, and this entails some advantages and limits too, because it does not replace the government completely. We'll give the floor now to Emmanuel, who will speak from the experience that they have in the Inter-American Institute for cooperation in agriculture. And I would like you to develop on the impact of COVID and the need we have for the institutional restructuring. That is to say, from a wider point of view, including the problems of governance, and how we can include new players to improve the governance in the framework of the crisis so complex that we're facing now. Emmanuel, you have the floor now. Thank you. I will share with you my screen.
No sé por qué no está funcionando. Nada más un minuto, por favor.
I don't know why this is not working. Just a minute, please.
¿Me confirman, por favor, si la...
Can you confirm me if you can see the presentation on the screen now? Yes, we do. You have the floor now. So I'm Emmanuel Pical, and I work for the ICA. And I would like to greet you. And as I said at the beginning, we had a very strong rain here for 2 or 3 days. Strong showers that have been produced by the hurricane that comes from Central America now and is translated into some complicated problems. I will speak about digital innovation now. And this is the experience that we had in this regard. And basically, the agenda that we're going to deal with in the presentation is the following one. And we'll see, we'll be working on each one of the items. As you know, agriculture is a driver for development that is now developing, and unfortunately, we have some gaps, very important ones that should be solved domestically. And I would like to give you some interesting figures for the 2018, agriculture had 13.8% of share in exports in the agri-food world exports. Latin America and the Caribbean are the leaders in these areas, including seeds, fruits, and other produce. And in 2011, we have 4.9% of share as an average in the agricultural sector and the GDP. However, as I said before, we had some gaps that should be bridged somehow, and we are working to this end. While some of the countries are facing problems to feed the population, there are some other countries that are undergoing the problem of overweight as a result of poor nutrition. And we see that poverty and insecurity, the food insecurity is extreme in the rural areas, and the urban sectors have more poor people and are more vulnerable. Now we will focus on agriculture or family agriculture and the relevance of this sector. We see that there are some gaps, for example, the access to infrastructure, to financing, to technical resources, as well as education, and labor security and social security. The family agriculture contributes very highly, between 57 and 67% to the food production in the region, and it generates over 60 million jobs, particularly in Central America. Over 60% of the family farmers are in poverty situation, while on average the family farmers only have 3 years of schooling. And this is something that calls our attention, and over a third of them is illiterate, and over 50% don't have access to electricity services. COVID, unfortunately, has widened those gaps, and vulnerabilities have been increased. And we need to advance towards a new kind of agriculture. And as a result of the impact of COVID, we can observe this from a negative point of view, where we consider all the impacts, everything that is producing, and we can consider also that as an opportunity to continue our work on a new kind of agriculture. And when I speak of a new agriculture, or before this, I would like to touch on some of the impacts produced by the pandemic. According to data from ECLAC, we had a drop of 9.1% in the GDP of Latin America and the Caribbean. In trade, we had 7.7% drop in the total in Latin America, according to the World Trade Organization. And ECLAC says that we have 2.7 million companies that had to close down, a million of people who are in poverty now. We have 44 million people who are unemployed deployed as a result of pandemics, and these are data that are very important and we should pay close attention to them. Now, if we see the positive side of it, that we need to work and we need to move towards a new kind of agriculture, allowing to provide healthy and safe food according to the needs of the population. And all these foodstuffs should be available at the right time and in accessible prices for people. We should generate more jobs and revenue, and agriculture should be more profitable and transiting from the artisanal kind of agriculture to a technified one. And we need to create or generate revenues from the exports, and we should be respectful of the environment. And when I refer to these smart agriculture should be comprehensively smart, that is to say, adding value, to be smart and to be also nutritionally smart and socially accountable. All of this is a process. The implementation of this digital agriculture is a main challenge now. The ICA has been leading a whole process, and we are working with technologies that are not the future anymore. They are here to stay, they are the present, and these are inputs to do this transport transformation. We have the Internet of Things, we have automatic learning, the enhanced reality, and these are elements that are essential for this revolution that we're working on. I would like to share with you now the index, global index for innovation, that includes four pillars, and including the government, the digital technology, and the participation of girls.
I will not take too long in this area, but I would like you to see what the region looks like in this area and all of the different possibilities that we have to keep improving in this area. Together with IDB and Microsoft, we launched a very important research, very good research related to the digital gap and the access gap. We have 77 million people that do not have access to internet or quality internet in rural areas. This is something that is really standing out, and we have to work it out. If we want innovation to reach rural areas, we need to reduce this amount of people that do not have access to internet. I'm a technician, or I work in the area of technology. I work with technology. But for a number of years, I have realized that technology is just a simple means or tools to reach goals. It is a bridge to reach other areas. Only through technology we will not be able to reach these goals. So, which is the core of this ecosystem? That is per people, the producers, the farmers. They are the heart of the whole system, where we have to have these people be able to go through this whole digital transformation, become a successful activity. It is not only just providing them a technology, but rather we have to work with people. We have to have this technology be an inclusive tool, inclusive from different points of view, from access point of view, from knowledge. Not only, as I mentioned earlier, is to provide rural areas with technology, because that is not enough. We have already realized it is not enough. If we do this, we will be able to increase the gap and there will be no solution. We have a pending agenda. We're working on it right now. And this idea is to generate these agri-food smart systems. A very important aspect of this agenda is the development of public policies. It has to be done jointly, not only the IICA or the international organizations. It has to be together with the public and private sector, with international organizations, civil society, and it has to be focused in four aspects: connectivity, the proper digital developments, regulation, and capabilities, which will be providing us with many different opportunities that we need to be working with. We have to continue working, as I mentioned earlier, in reducing the digital gap in the rural areas. We have to empower people to be able to obtain a successful digital transformation. We have to sensitize and cooperate in the development of proposals of different policies that will favor digital inclusion and innovation in agriculture. The IICA, as I mentioned earlier, has been working with all these activities. And innovation, research, and develop is really part of the DNA of the IICA. For 78 years, we have been working and we have always been coordinating and leading different networks related to these aspects. We will continue doing it. And it is something that is practically or is part of the DNA of the midterm plans that we have. How do we carry out these activities? We have different strategic programs that are cross-sectional. Together with the different countries, we work and provide solutions to all of these aspects. The IICA has been developing a number of tools for solutions that will allow us to solve or help or aid the needs of our different countries. I would like to just present some of these. A number of months ago, we signed an alliance with the PAD that is led by the 2018 Nobel laureate, Mr. Clement. We have two initiatives that have been strongly been working in Brazil and Colombia and other countries, where through cell phones, cell telephony systems, we will be improving and supporting more than 100,000 producers so they can have access and be able to develop and use this technology in their agricultural processes. We have internal apps to develop these activities in the Caribbean. We have been working strongly in blockchain for full traceability of the process in agriculture and in markets. We are also generating some initiatives in strengthening capabilities for digital agriculture. And I would like to highlight CIMAG, which we consider is the hemispheric program in education. That is the most important thing we're doing together with Microsoft, Bayer, we are developing this center where we expect to be able to physically and virtually have the participation of more than 10,000 people that have the experience of applying technologies, digital technologies in agriculture. It is a center that we are developing that is highly dynamic and interactive, where people can interact and have this experience of the foundation. We have also developed, together with the Technology Ministry, Science and Technology in Costa Rica, the first Fab Lab, a lab that manufactures digital products in Costa Rica, and we are applying it in many different countries, exclusively dedicated to agriculture, so that there can be a generation of solutions and prototypes in Internet of Things, and that this can be done jointly between farmers and producers. We are also developing together with academia educational program of Internet of Things for rural young people, which is a very interesting subject. We want and we are trying to reduce the digital divide, not only in access as we did with the Microsoft study of the IDB and the IICA, but we also want to promote the different digital capabilities in rural areas. We do not only want people to learn how to use the IoT, but rather we want and we hope that these people will be innovative and will have the capability of developing their own IoT equipment. With this educational program, then, we are working, which is first starting in Costa Rica, but then will be held on a virtual fashion with different countries so that young people can be able to develop these IoT equipment or devices. Together with IICA, IDB, and Microsoft, we developed this study that was launched just a couple of days ago, and it is related to rural connectivity in Latin America and the Caribbean, a bridge in sustainable development during the pandemic. Together with with Oxford University, IDB, and FIDI, we carried, or IFAD. This is the digital inequality and gender in Latin America and the Caribbean, which is something very important that I would like to highlight. This is an important gap, this digital divide in the gender issues. Many times women do not have access to technology. For a couple of months, we carried out a very interesting event at headquarters, and you can see the picture right here, where we had thousands of women in headquarters exclusively talking about technologies among women. It was a very interesting event, highly enriching to see all these women specifically talking about technologies. Also, through this virtual platform education, this educational virtual platform, so that thousands of people can learn about strategic systems and to cover their needs and to continue developing this digital divide. IACA has not been working alone in this area. This has been a we have been working with the private sector, public sector, and the academia. It has been a very interesting process of a joint creation activity jointly with different countries and with this community, and the Science and Technology Ministry in Costa Rica with Bayer that has supported us tremendously. And Microsoft has been an important leader in the area with PAD Foundation Precision Agriculture for Development and the University of Oxford. And we will be developing all these initiatives, and we would like to invite you to become part of this whole process, as the challenge, all these aspects have to be solved jointly. It will not be solved by just one institution, as these are very large challenges, very important challenges. And just to be closing my words, we consider that digital innovation in agriculture is presenting a real opportunity in helping to increase sustainability and productivity in agri-foods based and the efficient uses of natural resources. But the many challenges require collective construction and strategies that will not leave anybody out. We have multiple realities, multiple needs, and we should not be only provide one solution to all these different situations. We have to customize and identify each one of them and provide independent solutions to all these needs. This is my presentation, and I am open to your comments and questions. And it has been a pleasure to share with you the experience. I am here to help.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Your presentation was very comprehensive, showing us what the IICA is doing, and this is giving us a new dimension, how the digital issue is very quickly being assumed. So everybody has to take on this initiative or this possibility that is provided, and those who have less resources have been more affected, and that's why the divide is widening. And it's very important to work hand in hand with the opportunities that we have through digitalization, and facing also the risks at the same time. And as you said, minimizing this digital divide that was present before and that maybe is now aggravated. And that's why it's very important when we think of governance of the institutions that are in this challenge to this. Is not only a challenge for the farmers, but for the institutions as well. The public institutions normally are lagging behind in these issues related to innovation. And therefore, you're raising here an issue that is very important. Thank you, Emmanuel. And now what we'll do is to go to the video that has been prepared by Carla Ramirez, the next speaker. She is a member of the rural inhabitants, and she is going to show how the initiatives from the civil society can be innovative in order to have a partnership and organizations and to cope with the challenges that the rural youth is facing now. One of them is digitalization, but there are many other challenges involved. The training that is required, and how we can get the information that is required, the different inputs in the rural sector, and particularly in the agriculture and cattle sectors. Byron, now we'll have the video, please. Our history.
Janet, disculpa, ¿pudieron ver el video?
Were you able to see the video? We only see the image, but there is no sound. We're working on that now.
Buenos días, señor Jorge.
Good morning, Mr. Jorge. I'm Janet Manuel Otero. Mr. Sanchez, the coordinator of this panel on agriculture, institutionality, and governance. Good morning, my friends from all the region of Latin America and the Caribbean who are following us in this presentation. I would like to particularly greet all the young women like myself. We believe that in the land we have a future that is also full of passion. I would like to greet also all the young who are linked together in this a national network of agriculturists or the farmers. As you may know, the women produce 50% of all the produce around the world. It calculated that one fourth of this population is represented by women, but they just have 2% of the land property. And Latin America, only 18% of the land is owned by women. So I believe that starting this panel with my presentation is a guideline to show where the institutional efforts should be directed for agriculture. And the situation of the pandemic from COVID-19 is a contextual issue. However, we have to pool our efforts so that the attention can get at the inequality structural problem. I would like to tell you my story now. I'm from Salvador. I'm 29 years old, and I live in a small village called it's the Canton de Planet from the municipality of La Palma, and it's close to the capital. In 2011, I was studying the career of law juridical studies. And because of many factors combined, first of all, the security in my country, and then we started to see many of murders taking place, and also because of economic hardship, I had to leave my studies and the career. And a few years later, I started to work in a cooperative, and this is a cooperative that at that point in time was starting to see the light in the production and commercialization of vegetables. I studied in the preparation of the product, the screening, the cleaning and packing of these produce. With the time, I was assigned with different responsibilities to have administrative control of the activities because of all the needs that were coming up in the cooperative. I started to assume new activities. And in the cooperative, we had this a small nursery, and we had also the need to have a stricter control. So I decided to accompany other young girls who were participating in this nursery because traditionally they just have male workers, and we started to have a better relationship. This is a highly engaged work of that requires to be continuous in the work, and then sometimes we start to see some diseases in the plants or pests. And this is a very nice job because day by day we start to see how beautiful nature is. And from just a single seed, we see this becomes a big plant and it starts to bear fruits. And from a seed, we see how the beautiful plant is shaping. We can see the root structure, the form of the leaves, the shape of the leaves, because all the varieties are different. And each one of them requires a shape or a different kind of treatment. So all of these details makes you fall in love with these plants because my companion who was with me at all times in this nursery, she told me how we should talk to plants and what the right reaction vis-a-vis the plants was. So actually, this is a very hard work, but we women have this ability to develop this job. At the beginning, we didn't have a lot of support because they didn't believe that we would make it. But however, we are in love with plants. We love seeing plants growing and being able to take care of them. Women pay close attention to details and careful, and that's something that plants need. In August 2011, another partner started to study sustainable agriculture oriented towards the organic agriculture in Salvador. And we started with this project, and that's where we saw the origin of this initiative of this ecological orchard, and we started to deal with the preservation of soil and water, the good agricultural agricultural practices and good manufacturing practices. And these are very important topics for us because actually those should be mastered by the people who work in our area. And this diploma program, we were 150 young people from different districts in Charatenango. And among them, there were 11 classmates who were directly working in the preparation of vegetables, and we decided to submit our entrepreneurial activity that was the opening of these land plots. And then we had some circumstances coming up, and these became smaller. The project had to stop for a few months because we had a pandemic. But as help from the cooperative, we started to open our our entrepreneurship entrepreneurial activity. And the problem is that our produce was already ready to be commercialized, and everything was paralyzed. And our production, our throughput was ready. We started to work with the distributors who work at their time with the restaurants and different distribution chains, and we had the vegetables ready to be commercialized by the hotels, and restaurants were closed, and that's why we were not even able to sell half of our throughput, and we were very disappointed and sad at the end because this translates into loss, and there was a lot of effort and investment made, and the money also was lost. However, and despite all of this, we continue to produce at a smaller scale, but we continued to produce. And a few months later, we saw another problem. We had a storm that also flooded our land plot. We had rains for several days, and this translated into many damages to the produce. And we were disappointed, but however, we continued to move on. We have not given up. We understand that our actions are important, and the small actions bear fruits at the end. And this allows our product to have a high value. Presently, we are selling a little bit more of our produce, not yet as it was beforehand, and we are looking for new markets. And we'll see here some pictures how our process has been since we started by clearing this land and that was lent to us. We had to clear that area, and we see the consequences of the flood and how we are catching up, and we see how we prepare the vegetables in the packing unit because we ourselves produce this in the country, and then we package them. The pandemic is a present problem, and definitely we have to find a way to get out of it. And we should not be discouraged. We should find new solutions, more options that we can rely on. But besides the pandemic, we are experiencing other problems, including the environmental issues and the poor financing and the lack of training in innovative and technologies that are environmentally friendly. We know if we do not take care of the environment right in the right manner, this will um, fire back. And then now we see a lot of problems, and with this crisis, we should stake for the sustainable production of food. And those who produce food know that there is no future. As young people, we know that the way we have made things for many years with chemicals and not natural methodologies, has produced an environment and a community that is impoverished. So we need to know new technologies to do the crops in a natural manner with love as the elements are taking care of us. In terms of government and institutional framework, we need to have training and all the financial facilities to fight the climate change. As young women, we have the strength, the creativity, and the willingness to work on the land. It's nice to be in the office, to have the administrative control, but this is the area where we develop ourselves. And this is what is particular of our area, the agriculture, and that's why we want to work in the land. As young women, we think that we should agree so that the crisis at the present one doesn't widen the inequality already existing. And the production in the field is not everything. We need to have the support of other people. This is fundamental, and that's why the support of this network is very important. Being part of this network let us know and to uh, act in a particular way vis-a-vis the environment. There is a accompaniment that is very important. We share the knowledge and we can encourage each other and to um, do our activities with willingness. And the major attainment has been generating new jobs. This is one of the things that we are able to do. And thanks to our produce, we can meet the engagements that we have from the cooperatives, and we have an extra revenue that helps us support our family, because some of the people who work with us are single mothers, some of them are women who stayed on their own, and therefore it's very important to uh, create employment for our own people. And we still have many other things to attain, and we have some goals in both the medium and the long term. We know that some of them will be possible by our own, and other goals will need the support from some institutions, but we're sure that many young people and women in Latin America want to work in the field and to take care of the land. It is important to leave aside the idea of I cannot do it, and to leave aside the criticism, destructive criticism that some people are doing and lead nowhere. So if we have to do something is to fight for it. And in this world, nothing is impossible, and our limits sometimes can be overcome. Sometimes we have storms that are producing a lot of distraction, and everything is finally destroyed. So this should help us to do more things, regardless of the space where we are. The young women are strong, intelligent, and we have everything that is necessary to meet the goals. And we need to put the best of us, ourselves. Thank you.
Bueno, muchas gracias a
Thank
Carla.
you very much to Carla. Very motivating the experience of their initiative of these young women in the organization and construction of this cooperation network. As you were able to see, this was their own experience. They never mentioned the support of other institutions. So it is very interesting. Here we have a wonderful group of proposals and experiences, and we create a wide fan of options from the organized producer sector and such as the different associations and the possibilities of funding that can be obtained. We have the experience from the civil society and the group of young people. These groups that are all a challenge to have young people in the rural sector with their own initiatives. And for them, it is very interesting to consider sustainability, agroecology, organic crops, and others. All this goes together very well with the different proposals that are that have been discussed along the seminar on how we will be reconstructing in a better fashion with different requirements, with more requirements or more sustainability to protect agri-food systems. This is a challenge, and young producers from Colombia as well from El Salvador are giving us these new possibilities or initiatives. Emmanuel has opened us to the dimension of technology and the different possibilities provided by digitization, how we can incorporate all this. And he tells us about these gaps or divides that maybe can be intensified with the pandemic, as well as access to education, digitization, that becomes very important if we want to take a leap forward and to have a digital agriculture, to never leave anybody behind, to have everybody involved, all those that participate the in agriculture, not only young people, family farming, and others that might have already been connected or not. So we have different possibilities. I had forgotten to mention something I will mention now, that all these criteria, these ideas are being placed in a content matrix. Please remember that we're in the institutional and governance environment with all the challenges that we have here. And we have seen a very interesting perspective of the different presentations we have heard so far. We have other guests as well that probably would like to present their comments. Some of them are here in our chat room. We do not have the chat with questions yet, but those of you that are in this room and would like to participate, you are welcome. Byron, you are checking the website, yes? Yes, Jeanette, good afternoon. I just sent through YouTube as well as the Zoom chat. I sent a link for our participants to fill in this form. So if you please click on this link, including all of our participants and speakers, to click on the link and fill in the form that has been presented. This dynamic is including everybody. Okay, so please click in the link. Can we participate? Yes, please. I am a consultant. I am on the chat as a consultant. Okay, please, you have. My name is Bernardo Salinas. Two important aspects. One is to congratulate you. I thought it was a very good presentation, and it allows us to develop proposals, which is the goal of this seminar, a document that will guide public policies, but in two important relevant areas. One was talking about the young people. I believe that in the rural sector in Latin America, aging is very important. More than 50%, or whoever is dealing with statistics, how many are the products that are being provided to families from small farming systems? But there is a tremendous gap because aging is important, and we have young people working here becoming a very important aspect. So how can we have a development institute that has a gender component for women and youngsters that will generate capabilities and knowledge for a generational change and for sustainability? And our colleague from Costa Rica, there is a digital divide that should be important to break. There is, and in ITCs, we have a very important work that needs to be done with young people. So from the institutional aspects implying governance, why not consider a new governance, which is not a bureaucratic organism, but maybe one that would allow to target these public policies with the public activities in an alliance that will allow to generate a generational change. And the second one was for our colleague Jorge Bedoya from Colombia. Really interesting, this private fund. But what I wanted to ask was whether it is feasible to have this model to transfer it to different realities in Latin America, including the labor component. We know that the pandemic has affected producers as they have not been able to sell their products. They probably have the means of production, but for those that are hiring labor, which is the logic of these activities, and to ensure labor and be able to have the minimum wages at least for an income for families, without of course forgetting that there is a promotion to of human capital. And that is what I wanted to mention. So thank you very much and congratulations to all. Thank you. Bernardo was your name. Yes, thank you, Bernardo. I would like to take the opportunity to use this question and those responses of Emmanuel and Jorge, and be able to guide those responses in terms of the consideration of institutions, the roles of the different participants. The IICA was presenting their proposal in terms of training, but the question that I would ask, the question I would ask Emmanuel is, which would be the roles of the state, the local governments in joining efforts that can be sustained throughout time, such as our colleague just mentioned, Bernardo, to be able to scale up this important initiative of training young people and make them be able to use these digital tools so that they can become the ones that train the following generations, as they are more open to gather these news, to obtain the information from these new activities. And also some possible support that can be provided from the state as well as from these initiatives or these public-private funds. Here we would have to uh, ask Jorge about the questions, uh, which is the scope of the funds and the possible uses of this quasi-fiscal fund or indirect tax, and the possibilities of the sector, including the digital innovation and other activities. These are more complex aspects, not from in one sector. You can establish alliances maybe with universities and others, in handling these activities. They're very complex, they're very dynamic. Now with big data and others, it can be more accessible.
Perdón que te interrumpa,
Sorry
perdón,
to
pero
interrupt.
lamentablemente no hemos recibido
Unfortunately,
ningún
we have not received
ingreso al formulario. Entonces,
any entries to the form, so I would like to take away 30 seconds from you. I would like to repeat to our speakers participating here in the Zoom, those participants in the Zoom, and our friends that are seeing us in YouTube, in the YouTube chat, we have included the link to the questionnaire. Please fill in the questionnaire so that for the following 30 minutes, it is important to have their input and to be able to fill in our matrix. Okay, then please remember the question, which is the institutionality that we need for the transformations that we need? So please, I will offer the floor to Emmanuel and then to Jorge. Thank you, Jeanette. What our colleague was mentioning is really important, and this is why we are interested and we like to work with children, with youngsters, as they are the future. This is the future of agriculture. In average, the age of farmers in Latin America was something like 55, 56 years of age. They are still young people, but it is hard for them to go through changes. If we want to work with children and youngsters, we can provide more sustainability and incorporate technology to these people so that they can have and go through an exchange in this whole process. We have found very interesting activities, for example, different subjects in areas like IoT for agriculture, as this provides with solution to people that live in rural areas, and they have the possibilities to develop themselves in rural areas. Many people that live in rural areas come to the cities and urban areas and want to look for better opportunities, but they don't have the possibility to develop themselves, and it becomes a virtuous circle. But if we, together with academia, start providing them with the training and work with them from early ages, it is done in a sustainable fashion.
At the IICA, we are working on issues, and we want to say that this is an agriculture. It's a cool activity. This is a technological thing, and that can be applied and generating the agriculture things that are technologically interesting, and to make this step forward towards modern technified agriculture. So that is my comment for now.
Ah, ya.
Janet,
Sí, adelante.
I should excuse myself because I have to leave this meeting. I have another meeting,
De
and I would
acuerdo.
like to apologize for that.
Jorge, tal vez si
Jorge,
podrías participar.
maybe you can participate. I had many things to say about the things that have been raised here, and I would like to start with the saying we have in Colombia, the importance of the public assets for the farmers in the field, because we have over 12 million people and we cannot segment the sectors because there is not enough resources. So I would like to say from the point of view of the public assets, first of all, we have technology, and in the SAC, which is the association that joins the 22 most important sectors of production and is already celebrating 150 years of existence. And we can create the scale economies. And we have created an agreement with the uh, Andean Corporation of Development to help the producers. And the virus, the coronavirus, is changing this, and this compelled us to change into the virtual scheme. And with the cooperation of the Harvard University of the United States, we are able to create some courses for farmers related to the soft skills and managerial skills. As the lady who said in the video, the issues of commercialization are very important. And this can become a reality by doing the right volume and to have partnerships and letting these costs to be much lower. And this will contribute to change the mindset and not depending always on the state aids. And now, with the ITCs, we try to leverage the signal of internet and the cell phone signals in this area because we g- need to have this good internet platform to provide the training. So we're having agreements with the telephone companies to offer kind of packages so that these people can have access to the courses, but also to the digital connectivity. We also have a gender approach that is very important in this agreement with the SAC. We have beneficiaries of the area. As I said before, Colombia has 12 million of rural inhabitants. And in this sense, I think that in Latin America, in general terms, women are not only doing the leadership in their households, but they are the driver for additional revenue in their families. And the government should guarantee the resources for the programs encouraging the development of women, and they should become state policy, not only for the presidential periods. And now, regarding the labor and the non-tax schemes, we have an aging of the labor in our country, and because of the conditions of violence and the migration from the countryside to the cities, we are running short of labor, and we need to have the right labor system because this is the same one that we apply in the cities and the countryside. And this is um, working hours, 8 hours of work during the day. And we have asked the government to have a different or differentiated labor scheme so that they can have differentiated working hours during the day and the afternoon and to have access to security. And that is the major driver that we could have to reduce this unemployment and to facilitate the hiring and the generation of more um, work. And these benefits are determined by the farmers themselves, but under the logics of the public assets because we wouldn't have enough money to guarantee all of that. And the best minister of agriculture that we have in our country is the transport minister because as we build the highways that connect the production and distribution centers and the ports, that is a different situation as it happens in Chile, Argentina, or Brazil. In Colombia, we are lagging behind in terms of connectivity, and this helps to generate further employment. And I think that we have this opportunity to create more. jobs and food security. So I would conclude here my answer to that question. And thank you for giving me this space. Thank you, Jorge. We already have important inputs, and I would like to ask Byron if you can help us because we had an already made matrix and maybe you can display it. In here we have the different criteria, the kind of institutional framework we require. We have the linkage of different actors, the regulatory framework, the new concepts and paradigms for governance, the participation mechanisms, then the strengthening of producers or farmers associations. And you already said, Byron, that maybe we can make an effort for a second round of inputs in connection with some of the cells or boxes we have not completed there, the regulatory requirements, as well as the linkage of different actors that we already discussed, the possibilities of PPPs through the parafiscal funds and the different initiatives, the networks of the producers, the young people, and other initiatives, and the regulatory framework. Maybe you have some other
Janet?
inputs. Concerning now the regulatory framework, there is something very important for the Latin American countries, and in general terms, that was also mentioned in the video. We have the small farmers and the public procurement. We have millions of inhabitants in our planet that are running short of food during the crisis, during the pandemic, and the public procurement can be a win-win situation. First, for the farmers, for the small farmers who have restrictions for commercialization and for the most vulnerable populations. In Colombia, we have a regulatory framework that has been approved and is leveraging the public procurement in a country where we have a central system and is now giving priority to the acquisition of foodstuffs to the small farmers. Secondly, in terms of the response by the international organizations, we should have a common denominator. We should try to build scale economies when we see what the IICA or FAO or the IDB are doing. I think it's very important to have a kind of hub for control where we can have an inventory of all the actions they are doing to prevent the duplication of efforts in the field, because we see this a lot in the in some of the cases. And I believe that this should lead to the generation of public assets, because otherwise, if we're going to favor just one group of the population, we lost the audio, sorry. The international organizations play an important role to attract not only those that are focused on agricultural issues, but those related to technology. As the delegate of the IICA said, we have all the issues related to connectivity that finally are very important. So we should find room for further
Janet,
institutional reinforcement. It's very interesting what Jorge just said in terms of the regulatory framework and also the regulation for the public procurement systems, where we have all these controlled by the government and a market niche can be regulated by the government. In fact, the legislation of many countries of Latin America have this, but not all of them. And this gives a priority to the local national farmers. And in the matrix, we can see the responses from the international organizations. We should prevent the duplication of efforts, and we should support the scaling up of these interventions to create or generate these public assets, not only including the players and the institutions in the field of agricultural development, the food systems, but also those from the
Janet,
technological field.
sí,
Janet,
mira, bueno, mira, muchas
go
gracias,
ahead.
Janet. Habla Octavio Sotomayor de CEPAL
I'm
y le
Octavio
quería hacer
Sotomayor
una
from ICLAC.
consulta,
I
Jorge.
wanted to
La
ask
verdad que
something
las
to
entidades
Jorge
parafiscales
because
colombianas son
the
paradigmáticas. Yo hallo aquí una experiencia
non-tax
muy interesante por todas las razones que
organizations
él
are a
explicó.
paradigm for all
Y me
the reasons
gustaría
he explained.
preguntarle
And I would
tres
like
mini
to
preguntas. La primera es,
ask you a
¿qué
question, a
volumen de
short
recursos
question, which is the volume of
manejan estas
resources
entidades?
that
Yo
these
entiendo, por ejemplo, que la Federación de
organizations
Cafeteros de
manage.
Colombia,
I
una entidad
understand that the
parafiscal,
coffee
maneja mucha
producers
plata.
is an
Me gustaría
entity that
saber
is
más o
managing a
menos
lot of
de qué estamos
money,
hablando.
running a lot of
Y
money.
lo
So I would
segundo es
like to know
preguntarle qué
about
problemas
the
han habido también en la
amount and
regulación.
the
Yo entiendo que
problems that
estas
you have
entidades
encountered
parafiscales han sido muy
in this,
exitosas,
because I understand that
pero
these
también han tenido
organizations have
problemas.
been very
Entonces me
successful, but
gustaría
they also
saber
encountered
qué
some
tipo de
problems.
problemas
So I would
son
like to know what is
las
the
que han
kind of
debido
problems they
enfrentar en
had
los
to
últimos
face
años.
in the
Eso
recent
es.
years. That's it.
Rápidamente. Nosotros tenemos más de
Okay.
16 entidades parafiscales.
We have more than six of these quasi-fiscal entities in our country. They handle completely different budgets, as you're mentioning. The coffee organization is enormous, but they're all related to the size or volume of production that they are obtaining year by year. And that is what determines the budget. But it is, some of them are around $3 million per year, others are above the $15 million per year, and it goes according to the dynamic of the sector. If a sector is more profitable with better income, they will have more resources and allows them to reach more producers in more regions and to contribute with the public activities, as we mentioned. After the agreement with the US, they have strengthened that quasi-fiscal fund, and they have a program so that when these funds are ended, the producers would have had the alternative to become more competitive. So it really depends on the volume of the production and the regulatory aspects of where to charge what is called the promotion amount. If there is a tax that within the structure of cost of the producer will not be a heavy load. For example, in certain other productive sectors, if we're thinking about the 10% of the production cost, it will mean that the scale economy will not be helpful. In certain specific problems or others, I would say that we have not found in these funds any situations that are problematic in terms of regulatory aspects. Maybe in certain sectors, as they were established by the Congress of, it is hard to charge the promotion amount as it is considering the final trading aspect. And in a country where there are many different placements, it is hard to consider the collection of this promotion activity. Even though there are private institutions that are the ones that are managing these amounts, they are under surveillance by the public ministry, and it is not only considering how this resource is collected, but how the investment is carried out. There are surveys carried out in the territories, there are different indicators, and we believe it is very good practice as it has been working properly when the state is not able to have all of the different activities, even with leveraging activities and international activities. As I mentioned, I had the opportunity between 2003 and 2011 to be the president of this fund, and it was so successful for producers that the board said, why don't you go to the Congress, talk to the government, and increase in a 50% this possibility, because we need more resources. So one sector will request more taxes to be able to fund themselves, and this is a good example of how good it becomes, and it can be repeated in other countries. Octavio, maybe you have other questions or comments?
No, muy interesante respuesta.
No, but that is a very
Yo la verdad
interesting
creo que es
response. And the truth is, I believe that these parafiscal entities are a tremendous response when considering the restriction of the fiscal resources we have. And as Jorge just said, it is very good for the separation of the public policies, and it provides stability. When I was talking about problems, I have heard that these entities are so strong sometimes that they become a competition with the sector's ministry, in this case, the agriculture ministry. And I don't know if you have any problems in that sense that you can talk about. Fortunately enough, there are no problems, and that is pretty much dependent on the minister that is heading at the time. For those that have been working in Ministry of Agriculture, more than competition is good support, but we also have to say that in the board of this parafiscal fund, that is the one that has to accept on December every year how the resources will be used for next year, that group is usually presided by the Ministry of Agriculture, but the agricultures have more delegates than the government has. So it is a possibility where the ministry can veto the activity, but I have never seen that this occurs. On the contrary, the ministries are always considering the possibility, and they are expressing what the law establishes for the distribution of resources, and it becomes a very good distribution, so that the government can say, why don't we complement it here or somewhere else with the efforts of the government. And I have to express, though, that at some point when the technical assistance law was being created, which is very interesting, the government tried to consider the technical assistance of mayors and governors with the parafiscal funds, and that was not accepted, because everybody said to the government, you continue with your taxes and your activities and the technical assistance, but we have our own technical assistance for our producers, and it works very well. So maybe that has been the only element that, more than just a competition, it's like a train clash, if you wish. But what's important is the uses of these funds. They are different, and each sector does what they need. As for example, there will be, for example, technical assistance in cacao or coffee or others, and it is better to have that sector working in that area. What is interesting, Jorge, is that you are grouped with very strong stakeholders. So for everybody is interested in making this sector improve. Decision making then are the ones that are the best ones in improving these areas and to have a positive synergy. And observing the matrix, and please, I apologize because I had the expectation of aligning the different criteria. For those of you that are filling in the matrix, I would ask you that within the new concepts and governance paradigm, please consider the private public partnership, and in parentheses, the tool of these parafiscal activities and innovative or novel concepts for these partnerships, as for example, the parafiscal concepts.
Estimada Janet, ¿es posible pedir un minuto?
Dear Jeanette, can I have a minute? Yes, please.
Ahí. Primero que todo, agradecer las presentaciones.
I would first like to thank for all the
Hay una
presentations.
institucionalidad bien innovadora que
There's
quisiera agregar a
a
los fondos
highly
parafiscales
novel
también los
institutionality,
fondos
and
de
I would
inversión
like to
sostenible, ¿no?
add the
Estos se han
sustainable
ocupado, por ejemplo,
funds
en
to the
Chile para
parafiscal funds. They
potenciar
have been used in
empresas
Chile
B
to
y algunas de las
be able to
empresas de
support
agroindustria
B
podrían caber en
companies,
estos
and
tipos de
some of
categorías.
these
Entonces son fondos de
agricultural
inversiones como los
enterprises
normales, pero
could
que
be
tienen
part of
criterios de
this. They are the
sostenibilidad
normal funds, but have a
sociales y ambientales
criteria
también.
of
Y desde ahí,
sustainability,
entonces, si bien
social,
los
and others.
inversionistas obtienen
And
también un
if
rédito,
the
hay otras variables
investors are
sociales que son
obtaining
promovidas
return,
de estos
there are
fondos de
other
inversión
social
también.
aspects that
Y
are
de ahí me
promoted by
gustaría
these
también
investment funds. And I
colaborar
also
con un
would
poco
like
la
to
iniciativa
cooperate
que tiene
with the
este seminario
initiative
y este llamado
that
de
this
FAO,
seminar
¿no?
has and this
Julio, ¿cierto? Que es el
call on behalf of
director,
FAO.
nos comentaba al inicio de la sesión de los
We're
seminarios
hearing at the
esta
beginning of the
fuerte cambio
session in
paradigmático
the
también
seminar this
desde la idea de desarrollo hacia
very
una idea
strong
de
change in
prosperidad.
paradigm in
El
terms of
desarrollo,
development
¿cierto? Con la
prosperity.
idea de crecimiento
Development with the
económico ha
idea
generado en
of
nuestra región,
economic
¿cierto?
growth has generated in our region
Dilapidación de muchos de nuestros recursos naturales.
the
Y hoy en
damage
día,
of
¿cierto?
our
Está
of some
todavía con
natural
muy baja
resources,
categoría política la
and
idea de
there
prosperidad que
is
habla mucho más de procesos de
there's an
agroindustria
idea
y
that is
procesos generales
talking
también de la
about the
economía más sostenible
agri-industry
en el tiempo.
processes that
Y
is more
desde ahí, por
sustainable
ejemplo,
throughout
creo que es
time.
importante
And
también
I
para nuestros
believe then
países
that
con
it is
población
important for
indígena
our countries
entender que no todo el
with
uso
indigenous
agrícola del
population
suelo es para
that not all
exportación,
of
¿cierto? Y tener
the use of
maximización
soil is for
económica,
export
sino que
and
también
for
puede haber un
economic
uso del suelo
maintenance, but there
sostenible que
can
tenga que
be a
ver con
sustainable use of soil that will
poder
be
solventar la
related
demanda del
to
mercado interno y que, por ejemplo, ese
considered
tipo de
internal demand,
explotación más amigable
that
también del
type
territorio
of friendly
pueda, por ejemplo, en temas
exploitation
de
of
contingencia como la
the
pandemia
area
actualmente, satisfacer
can,
la demanda
as
interna.
now in
En Chile, por
pandemic, to
ejemplo,
satisfy
vemos
internal
cómo la
demand. We
mayoría
can
de
see
nuestras
that in
exportaciones de
Chile,
fruta y verdura
most
de
of
mejor
our
calidad
exports
son
of fruit
puestas
and
para la
vegetable
exportación
are
y
for
las de menor
the
calidad
good
son
quality
puestas en el
products are
mercado
for
interno,
exports,
¿no?
and the
Entonces,
lower
hoy
quality
día,
is
lo
for
que, como bien ustedes
local
ponían
markets.
ahí,
As
lo que
you were
tenemos son
expressing
situaciones
here,
más
what
de
we have now are
malnutrición, ¿cierto?
situations of
Obesidad, tenemos una de las
malnutrition,
tasas de obesidad
obesity.
más
We have
altas,
one
¿cierto? De
of
la
the
OCDE,
highest
sobre
levels
todo
of
obesidad infantil.
obesity in
Entonces,
OECD,
siendo productores
especially
agrícolas también,
in
¿cierto? No si ustedes saben que
children's
el cobre es lo que más
obesity. You
producimos,
know
¿no?
that copper
Y
is
después
what
el
is
litio, pero
really
siendo
producing
productores
tremendous
agrícolas
amounts in
también,
Chile. But being
tenemos
agricultural
muy mala, por
producers here,
ejemplo,
we have
calidad de salud en el
very
tema
bad
alimentario.
quality
Entonces,
and
quisiera también
health
poner énfasis un
related
poco en el
to
llamado también al cambio paradigmático
nutrition.
que hay
So the
de
idea is
repensar las
to
políticas, ¿no?
consider
Yo
this
puse ahí el tema de
paradigm
pensar las
change
políticas
of
también y las
changing
formas
in
de
these
agencia
these
y de los
policies,
esfuerzos a
to
multinivel.
consider the
La
different
necesidad urgente
efforts
también
at
que
multi-level,
combinemos
the
nuestros
urgent
esfuerzos como
need of
región
combining the
para poder
efforts
también
as a
poder tener
region
mejores formas de
to
negociación en los
have
mercados
better ways of
internacionales de nuestros productos
negotiating at
agrícolas y
international
agropecuarios,
level
¿no? Y
with our
multinivel también
agricultural
porque
products.
cuando queremos desarrollar los
When we
clústeres
want to develop
agrícolas al
clusters,
interior de nuestro
agricultural
Estado-nación,
clusters
nos vemos
within our
muchas veces con la
states,
incapacidad
we
burocrática
many
de tener
times see that there
entrelazamientos,
is
por
a
ejemplo, en la
tremendous
cadena de valor
bureaucracy
larga
of
con
a
esos clústeres
long
que queremos
chain
desarrollar,
supply, a
¿no? Algunas veces las
long-term
propias políticas
supply
que
chain.
promueven el Estado son más bien
These policies
sectoriales
that are
y
promoted by the
definidas en
state
ciertos
are usually
territorios y no
from the
permiten desarrollar
sector,
cadenas de
defining
valor amplias,
certain
¿no?
areas and do
Desde
not
el
allow
productor
for
hasta el último
uh,
consumidor, ¿cierto?
long
Teniendo
development chains
sostenibilidad,
from the
insisto, tanto en la
producer
explotación
and
como en los
all the way
mercados que
through
queremos promover. Muchas
in
gracias.
the markets that we want to promote. Thank you, Rafael. So can you introduce yourself? Where are
Perdón,
you
sí,
from?
sí. Rafael Cata.
Rafael Catalán de la Universidad Central de Chile.
Perfecto, excelente intervención, Rafael. Muchas gracias.
Okay, thank
Y
you,
aunque es un tema
Rafael.
bien interesante y bien importante,
It is a
quiero
very
hacer otra
interesting
consulta a ti mismo.
aspect, and I would like to ask you, these investment funds that you are suggesting, would they be private funds, or are you suggesting that now the the multilateral banks and others is considering different criteria that will be conditioning these activities? I think it is very interesting in terms of sustainability and social impact.
Sí.
What were you thinking
Estoy
about? Who's
hablando, por
supporting
ejemplo, de una
them
experiencia
and
muy
driving
precisa que
them and
ocurrió acá,
others? I
un
am
fondo que
talking about a
levantó Claro y
specific
Asociados,
experience.
¿cierto?
It
Que
is a
tiene
fund
esta
of
idea de
Claro and
sostenibilidad.
Asociados and this
Y
idea of
justamente
sustainability.
está enmarcado
And
solamente para empresas B, del sistema
it
B, ¿no?
is
Y son empresas que
considering
tienen
the
una
different
otra
activities,
forma de ordenamiento de
and
cómo
they
ellos
are organizing
generan la
how
gerencia,
this
digamos,
is
de
generating
sus propios
the
emprendimientos. Por
management of their
ejemplo,
own
tenemos una
activities.
empresa en Chile que
And we
suministra
have a
agua y ahora
company in
confort,
Chile that
¿cierto? Que
provides
accedió al
water
fondo
and
para poder
toilet paper
desarrollar
that accepted this
justamente su
fund to be able to
emprendimiento. Y la
develop
gracia que
their
tiene, por ejemplo, esa
activities.
empresa, que los
What's
dueños de
so
esa empresa
interesting
son
about
una
that company
fundación.
is that the
Por lo tanto,
owners
el
of the
objetivo de la
company
empresa al
is
generar
a
ganancia
foundation.
es
So they
generarle liquidez a la
are
fundación y lo que hace la
different
fundación es distribuir esos
earnings, and
fondos
what they
en
do is
distintas
to
otras organizaciones
distribute
de
the
la sociedad
funds
civil.
throughout
Vale
different
decir, se transforma en
organizations
una
of the civil
empresa que genera
society.
fondos
They
para
become a
distribuir esos
company that
fondos
generates
en otras
funds to
formas de inversión de
distribute them
ONG.
uh,
Entonces, este
in a
fondo
different way.
que fue
This
una
fund then,
innovación que hubo
that was
acá y
an
que fue
innovation that
efectivamente de
existed
privados, o
here,
sea,
and it
efectivamente
was
tuvieron
part of the
rendimiento,
private
o sea,
sector.
finalmente esta empresa de agua le va pagando finalmente
The
un
water
extra
company
a la
is
medida que va
paying them
creciendo
an
también
extra amount as
su
long as
negocio.
they are enlarging
Tiene
their
esta idea de
business, and they
sostenibilidad
have this
de
idea of
los mercados, ¿no? Entonces,
sustainability of
por ejemplo,
markets.
uno
For
podría
example,
implementar uno de estos
we
tipos
could
de fondos
implement
y
these
ahí tú me
type
haces una
of
pregunta
funds,
interesante.
and you're
La
asking
experiencia que
something
conozco
very
allá fue
interesting. The
solo de
experience
privados,
that
pero
I already
podría
know is
también haber
from the
inversión
private
de otro
sector,
tipo,
but there
por
could be
ejemplo,
an
de ONG
investment from
internacionales,
other
quizá del
areas, from
Estado, no sé,
international
conociendo un
NGOs,
poco
the state, or
la forma
others,
chilena
getting to
del
know
Estado, es
about
medio
the
difícil que
Chilean
inviertan,
state. It
pero
is very
quizá hay otras
hard
configuraciones
here
estatales que
to
sí lo
have them
podrían
invest,
hacer.
but maybe there are other
Pero creo
configurations
que ahí
that
hay
could
otra
do it.
forma
And I believe that
de
there are
generar
other
finalmente
ways of
inversión de distintos lados,
generating
que es un poco
investment
lo que
from
tú ponías
different
también,
areas,
¿no?
which is
Veo en
what
la matriz, por
you were
ejemplo,
expressing,
que
I
hay
see
poco
in this
relleno de cómo
matrix,
coordinamos,
that
¿no? Y
there,
hoy día lo
this
que
is
sabemos
like,
desde la crisis
how
de
do
los
we
estados de
coordinate it?
bienestar
What we
es que los
know from the welfare
estados no pueden resolver
states
todos los
is that
problemas
states
sociales que
cannot
tenemos en la
solve
sociedad,
all
¿no? La
social
incapacidad del
problems
sistema
that
político de
exist
procesar
in
esos
the
problemas
company.
sociales.
It's the
Chile ha
political
vivido lo que se ha
activities,
llamado
and Chile has
internacionalmente un
gone through
estallido
what
social,
it
¿no?
was called internationally the social
Entonces,
uprising, right?
requerimos
So we
urgentemente que las
do
políticas
urgently
públicas sean políticas
require
públicas
public
de coordinación
policies
interinstitucional,
that are
¿sí?
institutional
A mí, en lo
coordination.
personal, me trabajó, por ejemplo, trabajar en pobreza extrema en Chile, en campamentos, y después de
Poverty in
25
Chile,
años
and
de que la
after
política pública no
25
pudiese
years that the
solucionar
public
temas de
policies
urbanización en esos
has not been
campamentos,
able to
generamos un
solve the
acuerdo,
problems
¿cierto?,
of
entre una gran empresa privada, en
urban
ese momento
management. We
extractiva,
have
el
now an
Estado
agreement
y la
with
ONG
an
en la que yo
extractive
trabajaba, que era un
company
techo
and the
para Chile,
NGO that I
y
work
con
in
eso
is
logramos la
called
urbanización. Y
Un
con la
Techo para
urbanización
Chile, and
recién
we
pudimos lograr, por
finally
ejemplo, que la
got
gente
to
después de
do the
25 o 30
urban
años postulara
development
su
that
vivienda,
after
¿no?
25
Entonces, de eso
years,
estoy
these people
tratando de
had
hablar, que hoy
access
día
to
las
their
coordinaciones que
um,
necesitamos para poder crecer en
dwelling
dignidad,
units.
¿cierto?
And
Y
we
proponernos una
need
idea de
to
prosperidad,
propose an
requieren
idea of prosperity,
necesariamente
and
la
this
coordinación
requires
interinstitucional.
necessarily the coordination inter-institutions. Thank you, Rafael. Very interesting your inputs, and we should include this in the matrix. I don't know if this has been inserted in the matrix already, the need to do the linkage with the new concepts of governance, or the new paradigms for governance from the different sectors. And now that we put the PPPs, the innovative mechanisms, and we should include here the sustainable development mechanisms that are also very important. I don't know if anyone else would support us with comments and the recommendations. In this concept of new paradigms and governance, what would you say to the government, to the institutions, public institutions, what they should do or how they should better play their role to FAO, ICLAC, and so on? Jorge already said that they should try to coordinate interventions, but this is part of the efforts to have an agreement and to see where we can be helpful from each one of our sectors of intervention.
Janet, una última pregunta para Jorge
The
para
last
aprovecharlo, ¿no es
question
cierto? Porque hay que
question
sacarle
to
el jugo
Jorge.
a la
Since he's here,
posibilidad.
we have
Mira, a mí
to
me gustaría
squeeze the
preguntarte,
best out of
Jorge,
it.
¿qué
Jorge, I would
piensas
like
tú
to
del
ask
tema
you, what do you
digital?
think
¿Ya?
about the
Escuchamos la presentación del
digital
IICA, muy
issue?
interesante.
Because we
Yo por
listened
ahí
to the
encontré
presentation
una
by
agenda digital
IICA, and I
sectorial
found there a
colombiana.
sectoral
Creo que es el
digital
único país de
agenda in
América Latina
Colombia. I think that
que
this
como
is the only
sector
country in Latin
agrícola tiene
America as
un
an
plan, una
agricultural
agenda
sector has a
digital.
plan
No sé
or
si tienes
a
una
digital
opinión
agenda. I don't know if you have an
sobre ese tema.
opinion on that. Well, in Colombia, can you hear me? Yes. What we are doing in Colombia is in two perspectives in connection with the digital agenda. First of all, is the appropriation of the technologies that is with two tools. The first one is the copy and cut. That is to say, the adoption of technologies that are enforced in other countries. And second, the burst of these technologies that will lead to the fourth industrial revolution that we are engaged in. And we are trying to bring a hub of innovation to our country. So what is already available should not be duplicated. And secondly, if we can have Colombian innovators, that is the first dimension. The second dimension is how to land this so that the cost of technology adoption allows the small farmers to have access to it and to be more competitive. In Chile, you have seen this permanently that there is technology for the agri sector, but we have drones, artificial intelligence, but they are very costly for the small farmer. And that's why we have this gap that we're trying to bridge. And I would like to highlight this with something that I raised at the beginning of the conversation, and that is the extension of the digital connectivity networks for the rural sector. In Colombia, we have over 1,000 municipalities, and most of them are at areas where we don't even have highways. So we're trying to put the digital connection centers for all the community, and we want to encourage the cell phones companies so that they can reach those areas. Colombia has an experiment that was very nice with Microsoft and with the association, where Microsoft put an antenna to bring the digital connection, and they also put their platforms there, contributing with many items in the area of telemedicine, the educational tools for the children, and the marketplace for the follow-up of prices of coffee prices in New York. So I'm trying to give you some examples of things we have carried out, but they need the right scalability in the long run and sustainability as well, because otherwise it will be punctual and will not benefit all the communities. And that's why we're requesting the government that a figure that we copied by from Peru, and that is works with taxes, and they invest resources to build highways. And maybe this should also apply to the construction of connectivity. A producer of onions or whatever wants to have a tax break, they can benefit if they bring the digital connectivity that will favor that company, but at the same time, the community. As we already have evidence, and even in the times of COVID, or particularly at the time of COVID, we see that the government will run short of resources, and we need to have the right vehicle and the innovation that is commensurate with the needs that the farmers have. Sorry, Janet, to interrupt you. We are already 6 minutes from finishing, and then we'll go into the next activity with no break. So I would ask you, please, that with the last 5 minutes, we can go to the wrap up. Okay. So we're coming here to the close up, to the closing of this session. And we'll go to another instance now. And I think that we had very important considerations, including what Jorge said, another financing mechanism. And this will be a thrust for the public assets, including these works with taxes. And also we have the PPPs, and we have the third concept in the matrix are those works contributing to taxes.
Estoy yo. ¿Me indicas, de favor, en cuál columna?
B column, new concepts and the paradigms of governance and PPPs. We're going to put here number 3 with these works. That is to say, the initiatives we saw coming up here. Another issue that has been raised is the linkage between different players, organizations from both the public and private sector, national and international. Not only from the agriculture and cattle sectors, but also from digital and technological areas. We can see the linkage with Microsoft, with the University of Oxford, and others to bring the technologies and to bridge the gap we have in technological areas, and then to try to bridge this digital divide. So I don't know if somebody else would like to intervene very quickly, or we rather go to the new session. If there are no more interventions, we would close here.
Sí, mira, ya vamos a dejar de
Well,
transmitir la planilla.
we'll,
Como tenemos aún 3 minutos,
as we have 3 more minutes, we still have enough time to say goodbye and to thank you. And I will go now to the different dynamics by country. And we will close here this block of sessions. I didn't know that we were coming to the end of this session, but I would like to thank you. Thank you, Jorge, for your patience, for your time, and your participation that has been very relevant. I would like to thank the colleagues who are with us in the room and who are also doing very good contributions. And Manuel, who had to leave, Rafael, Octavio, everybody who has intervened, and Byron who has helped us in this difficult task to include these ideas in a matrix. So I wish you well, and I hope that you are following the seminar that is a very important activity. The FAO, the IDV, the World Bank, all the organizations who have made a major effort to gather together a series of experts and people with the experience and information. We had a meeting with very good ideas, and I hope that this has been interesting for everybody. Thank you for your collaboration, and goodbye. Goodbye, Janet. I would like to add something else to finish. First, I would like to thank Ruben Flores, yourself, and all my friends from FAO for the invitation, but I would like to invite you to coin a phrase that we coined in Colombia. It's clear that the field is meeting the expectations of people in Colombia. Now we have to pay back. So I think that this applies to all the country. The countryside or the field is meeting the expectations of everyone, guaranteeing the food to everyone. So now the world has to respond to the farmers around the world. Thank you. And I would like to greet you and thank you very much.
Muchas
Goodbye.
gracias por la invitación y el tiempo.
Thank you for the
Muy bien,
invitation
muy
and
interesante.
your time. Thank you.
Gracias, muchas gracias.
Bye.